going to see about live streaming this game. I don't know if it's going to work. I actually haven't paid too much attention about whether or not I would have the CPU resources left over to give it a good shot at live streaming, but I think it might work. Let me see here. I don't have my docs for the chat open. Let me get that open. Haven't dropped any frames yet. Thank you very much, Network and Cox Communications. So I'm going to thank Netgear. That is, I believe, all three wireless devices connect to the network. The router, I believe, is Netgear. Then the two extenders I know are Netgear. So I want to thank Netgear and Cox Communications for indulging me in this very, very silly thing that I do where I solo live stream. All right, so I haven't done any testing of this because why would I just do it live? It's not like it's going to be intruding on anyone's day for me to just do it live. But I've been playing this with the game set at 4K, but I'm not actually having the game render at 4K because this game engine supports various levels. I don't play with the mouse and keyboard, I play with the controller. Supports various levels of render scaling. And when I first started playing, oops. Let me get this captured. When I first started playing, I began running it at foreground window with hotkey. Okay, that's fine. That'll work. I think it was F11. Yes, okay. So I began running it. Immediately upon trying 1.0 resolution scale, native 4K, I was getting like low 50s FPS. So that was actually pretty good because the rest of the settings are on max. So even though I wasn't getting the 60 target that I wanted, I was actually very pleased by that level of performance. So what I did was I set it to 3520 by 1980, which is 0.8 for scale. Excuse me. And I was able to get pretty much constant 60. So then the other day I tried out the dynamic resolution feature, which is pretty rare in a PC game, at least from my experience, where it will automatically scale the rendering resolution to achieve the target FPS, which I have set as 60 because I have a 60 FPS display. And also, since it's... Oh, what? I gotta apply the settings. Since I had VSync off, and it's running at like 300 frames per second on this menu, I will put the max FPS. I don't really know which is the better option, VSync or max FPS. I'm using the ultra low latency feature with the NVIDIA drivers and the G-Sync display. So it's supposed to be very, very low latency introduced by using VSync. But I don't know whether that's better or worse than this. I'll try with VSync. Ever since I set the dynamic resolution, I had it with no limit to the frame rate, and it wasn't going too much over 60 FPS. Also, I noticed that the capture of the game right now is a mere 20 FPS. I need to figure out what's going on with that. The capture will usually go low if if something is absolutely maxed out, like the GPU is maxed out or the CPU is maxed out. Neither is the case right now, I don't think. Let me see. The GeForce Experience Performance overlay. FPS is 59. CPU utilization 31% says. GPU utilization 30%. Oh, I am now getting a solid 60 on the OBS capture. I don't know what just changed. It didn't really change anything. Also, a cool thing about this menu that I've never seen before. This is one of the best ports or PC. I don't know if games developers actually make ports anymore. I think they might have moved over to just developing game engines to be multi-platform and just inherently like Unreal Engine has and Unity has. So I don't know that they actually have to port if they've got a modern, up-to-date game engine. This is a proprietary engine for Monolith. I forget what it's called. But it's just, there's so much about this that I like. I've been playing it with the DualShock 4. This game natively supports DualShock. And you can even select the types of button prompts. So I've got those. I'm so used to playing with Xbox prompts. Most games do not support the DualShock 4. It actually kind of threw me off, especially with X, because the Xbox does have an X, but the X is where the square would be on a DualShock. So I had to sort of change my mindset after many, many years of responding to Xbox prompts, button prompts. So anyways, the very cool thing about this main menu is right now this game supports you switching back and forth seamlessly between mouse and keyboard or controller, which I think every game should. Not all games that support both do, but I think that that's the ideal and it should work that way. So if I move my mouse, actually I have to do more than move, I have to click. It creates these options in the menu, and then if I move the controller, it rescinds them and creates just this controller icon for the input. So if I'm using the mouse and keyboard, it gives me these extra options, which allows me to change the mouse settings. I don't know why there's vibration. That probably shouldn't be there. And then we've got the bindings for the various situations that you've got. And this game has a lot, I do mean a lot, of freaking inputs and a lot of abilities. It's actually ridiculous how many different ways you can control your character. And then I guess this is for the DLC. Yeah, this is the two DLCs. You play as these different characters. Interesting that they give you separate bindings for those characters in the DLCs. Very, very nice. But you have this massive list. I like the way it animates too. That's kind of cool. It's just a well-made PC game, even though ordinarily this type of game would be a port. So I've got the graphics on, it looks like medium, except for a couple things like texture quality. That absolutely has to be on ultra because I went and did the insane act of installing the 4K, the ultra, I don't know if it's 4K, but the ultra high res texture pack. This game is 150 gigabytes on my SSD right now. I went full hog. I installed the 4K videos. That was, I think, like 20 gigabytes, 25 gigabytes. The textures were, I think, 30, and then the base game was like 75. Absolutely massive. But the game looks very nice, especially the pre-rendered cutscenes, because they are rendering at 4K. And I'm playing this at 4K. That's why it's nice that you're able to scale the resolution with this game, because that means I'm able to see the full quality of the videos, even if I'm not rendering the game at 4K, because it's not necessarily performing well enough with my GTX 1080. But it does perform very well with the 1080. It says 2560 by 1440, or if you are Total Biscuit, 2560 by 1440. That's how he says that. 2560 by 1440. Oh, it's so many syllables. But the way he says it so quickly, it just flows off his tongue. 2560 by 1440. 2560 by 1440. Anyways, that's what it recommends based on my system configuration, but it's fine. I can run this at 4K on medium settings, and with the dynamic resolution, it keeps the game running well by scaling it as needed, and I've played several hours. Never once have I noticed it scaling. I'm sure that it is actually scaling, but I never actually noticed it. That is impressive. And that's the promise of dynamic resolution. That is what it is supposed to do. Scale to keep the frame rate at a target without it being noticeable to the player. So, keep anti-aliasing off. I'm playing at very high resolution. Don't really need that. Keeps the game looking sharp. I don't know what methods it has. FXAA and TAA. Off will be fine. So that's enough of a run through. Let's see if I can actually stream this gameplay. I am about 14 hours in, 28% of the way through the game. Now, I 100%ed the previous game, Shadow of Mordor. That only took me 25 hours. This game is a lot bigger than Shadow of Mordor. In fact, I haven't read any reviews really, but I have seen what people have said about the game, and they've said that the game is bloated in some ways. I don't know. Maybe. I've been doing my usual thing where I just roam the open world and do things as I see fit. So I'm running the game full screen. 4K, but the stream, of course, is 1080p, and it's 60 frames per second, I think. I should have changed it to 30. Yeah, I should have changed it to 30. So now it is losing frames, and I think that is probably just because of the resolution making me use 100% GPU. So let's try setting it to that. Let's see. So it's still 100%. That is still 100%. So let's scale it even more. Let's 2880 by 1620. 2880 by 1620. Oh man. Let's see how that looks. So it's at 60 FPS. Let's see what this says. GPU utilization 93%. I am getting 60 FPS on the capture now. Oh, and that performance overlay actually gets captured by OBS. So I think this is what I need to do to be able to live stream it. And the cool thing is it's still at 4K, the native resolution. So any cutscenes should still appear at 4K and not scaled in any way. I'm just really liking the technical part of this game. Oh, GPU utilization is 96%, and the FPS on the capture has dropped. I may want to reduce this even more for the purposes of the live stream. So let's turn shadows down, ambient occlusion to low, vegetation range to low, and just gonna have to reload some textures, I guess. I should be able to get this to work without having to lower my capture. Okay, wow. So it's still... Look at the quality of those distant trees. Holy shit. And it still didn't affect the performance very much. So we're going to change that vegetation back, because that is absolutely unacceptable. I think what I should probably do is set it to 1440p. I mean, try it. It's cool that I can just do that without having to change the resolution of the game. Alright, so GPU utilization 90%. I'm getting 60 FPS. 98%. Didn't actually make much difference for some reason. Yeah, I should have... I think I will restart the stream at 30 FPS. That might... Because the capture is not dipping below 30, so I think that might be the best way to go. I'll be back.